And without any further delay, I would like to turn today's event, SharePoint 2010, the top 10 features and scenarios that drive business value, over to your main presenter, Jason Noble. Jason, you now have the floor.
Thanks, Bennett. Again, thanks for joining us this morning on this topic. As you're probably aware, SharePoint 2010 has now initially been released in terms of what its capabilities are. And so what we're going to do here today is discuss some of the new features as well as some of the existing features that really drive business value and increase adoption. We'll do this by first starting with an overview of SharePoint in its current state, and then start to introduce the new vision for SharePoint, how it's been extended and how new features have been added. Then we'll drill right into the specific features that we're talking about, and then at the very end we'll provide you with some resources so that you can go out and do some follow-on reading and research, review some of the webcasts that were used to collect these features. So in the interest of keeping this somewhat interactive, we will have several polling slides within the presentation. So the first one is pretty straightforward. Do you have SharePoint deployed? Whether it's in a collaboration state, intranet, public-facing web, have you used it? I'll give everybody a few minutes to collect this, or to respond to this. So for the most part, yes. Okay, we have about half of the attendees having responded. Okay, good. All right, so thank you for participating in that. Looks like about 86% have it deployed, 13% or so did not. So why don't we just take a step back and look at where we're at in terms of SharePoint 2007. So without going into excruciating detail, there's some capabilities within the 2007 platform around content management, the ability to collaborate and do task management and calendar management, the ability to have an enterprise search platform, the ability to do some business intelligence capabilities, whether that's through the KPI web parts or through Excel services and Performance Point. And then there's also the ability to create portals, automate processes, and create business forms. So that's kind of a very high-level view of the technical capabilities of SharePoint 2007. Moving on to how those technologies are currently being implemented for business solutions, very common. We see intranets for internal employee-based communication. We also see extranets, very common for vendor or customer-based collaboration. Also, public-facing webs is a significant piece of what SharePoint is, so meaning the ability to leverage SharePoint as a web content management system and host your public-facing website on SharePoint itself. We've also seen some document management solutions, significant amount of document management solutions where it's either an extension or a replacement of your traditional file share that provides the ability to search across these locations as well as provide metadata. And then really the collaboration space is really where it starts to get into the self-service concept of being able to spin up a team site, share documents, do the traditional task management and calendar management capabilities within SharePoint. Also, we've seen a significant increase in the usage of SharePoint as an enterprise search platform, not just search within SharePoint, within the documents within SharePoint, but also extending that out into your line of business applications. We even have some customers that are leveraging the search engine within custom-built WinForm applications. So they're leveraging search to return results back to their application. So there's a lot of opportunities as it relates to search in 2007, as well as even greater opportunities in 2010. So moving into where we're going with SharePoint 2010, probably you're familiar with what was previously kind of the pie chart of SharePoint 2007, which was actually mentioned previously kind of in a top-down approach. But this is the new version of that capability pie, so to speak. So what we're talking about is the ability to create sites for documents and people to collaborate, the ability to create these things called communities that are similar in sites, except that the community actually has some intelligence to go out and find things and bring back content that is most relevant to that community based on tags and keywords and this new capability known as enterprise metadata management that's new to SharePoint 2010 that we'll discuss in a little bit. It's also obviously still very much involved with the management of content, whether that's documents, pages, the ability to do records management and records retention, the ability to, again, manage web content for your public-facing site. So that's obviously still a significant component within SharePoint. And then the search story, again, has significantly changed. It's been there's been some significant acquisitions, mainly FAST, that have now been integrated into the product set. We'll drill into that in a little bit as well. Then also this concept of insights. So the term insights is really a creative or a more all-encompassing term to collect what was previously termed business intelligence, but really moving beyond just basic business intelligence and moving into more truly actionable data and insights into the organization. And then the final component is this concept of composites. The term that you may have heard in the past is one of mashups, and essentially this is the ability to create applications as an end user that leverage SharePoint as the hub, so to speak, and pull in data from multiple data sources using the technologies at hand. So as we go through these features of SharePoint 2010 as well as 2007, what we needed to do to assess the value of these features is we really needed to put some attributes together to score these particular features against. The attributes that we used would be are listed here. The first is a reduction in the overall cost of ownership. So can we do more with less people and technology? So that's one of the items that we scored these features against. Also looking at increased productivity. So with less time and effort, can I get equal or greater results based on the previous capability? Also, for increasing productivity, are there any opportunities for optimizing existing or new business processes? So increasing the productivity of your users in that sense. Also, a pretty significant attribute is the increase in adoption. So as you know, a technology is really only valuable if it's used and it becomes part of the culture of an organization. So increasing the user adoption and the usability is a significant attribute to determining business value. Also, an increase in the value of the information that can be found within SharePoint. So there are features that will inherently increase the value of a document, for example, simply by understanding that people can provide comments and can tag a specific document, thus increasing the value of the information within that document. So with any feature or capability or scenario, there's always an implementation and management costs. So what you'll see as we walk through these features is that you might find, for example, item 10 is extremely valuable to you, and that's perfectly reasonable, and we wouldn't expect that these 10 are, the absolute top 10. But what we tried to do is balance the value, the business value, the capability value with the cost of implementation and the cost of that management. Because sometimes, it would be great to be able to go to a web page that has one button on it that says, do my job, but in reality, that is extremely difficult to accomplish and most likely impossible. So we do need to weigh a technology with its implementation and management costs. So our next polling question would be, for those of you that have SharePoint deployed, of those previously mentioned business value attributes, which do you think would be most valuable? What do you want to see happen with your SharePoint deployment? Do you want to see an increase in adoption? Do you want to reduce how much it costs to manage this environment? Do you want to increase the value of the information in your search results, for example? Do you have just too many documents to weed through in your search results? Do you want to increase that value, give visual indicators as to a particular document's value? So I see there are some folks answering this poll. So give it a couple seconds to think about, but really, what is it that you want more out of your SharePoint investment? Okay, just about 30 more seconds to complete the poll. Okay, so it looks like it's kind of a mix between the increasing the productivity as well as increasing the value of the information. Seem to be the two items that stick out. Also, increasing adoption seems to be a significant one as well. All right, good. So let's go ahead and continue on. All right, so the first feature that we wanted to introduce you to is this concept known as business connectivity services. In past versions, this was known as the BDC. Some significant investments and capabilities now within the BCS, Business Connectivity Services, is the ability to write back to those data sources, so that's obviously a significant investment, and just extends on the scenarios for integrating line of business applications. There's also some significant changes in that when you create these applications, these entities, these external content types, you'll also naturally have the ability to expose those to Word, to Excel, to this thing called SharePoint Workspace that we'll talk about, and InfoPath. So not only is it about manipulating content within SharePoint, but you can also extend that out into Word and Outlook and various other Office apps. So what you're seeing here is essentially the kind of breakdown of the technical architecture. We won't drill too much into that, but some of the value attributes is that we naturally can increase the user adoption simply by supporting a single application interface. We can also increase their productivity by providing relevant information from line of business systems. I'll drill into a scenario so we'll drill into that increase in productivity. But we also increase the user adoption by decreasing the baseline user knowledge of back-end systems. So one of our customers, they use a very large ERP system. And the executives and the director-level folks, they literally do not want this application stored or installed on their PC just because it's difficult to use. Not that it's not extremely valuable for the operations of the organization, but from a day-to-day interaction, executives, directors, et cetera, do not want to interact with this. They just want to have visibility into small slices of the information, relevant information. And that's really what the BCS is all about. Provide information that is contextual and relevant within the context of SharePoint, as well as the Office applications. Thus, you're increasing your user adoption of even your external, for example, ERP system, because they're getting the data from that system that they need without having to incur that overhead of learning the intricacies of that particular system. So an example of a real-world BCS solution that we're in the process of creating is one where a primary communication tool, as I think we all understand, is email. Emails come, emails go. Some of those emails are extremely important, and they document an interaction with a client. So in this scenario, what we've done is we've extended Outlook to include the ability that when an email comes in, based on the from address, it actually goes out to the back-end systems. In this scenario, it's Exapta, CRM, a custom ticketing system, and it actually pulls back that information about the from address. So what that allows them to do is, based on the customer that's sending the email, they can see their payment history, their service request history, see if there are any outstanding items. So they're immediately informed as to the health of the relationship between the client. So that's a real-world example of where we're leveraging the BCS. So number 9, there's a new capability called Office Web Applications, and again, the positioning of these are you can position these how you will. This is just how we see it. We put the Office Web Applications at number 9, and basically what the Office Web Applications are is full fidelity editing of Office-based documents within an Internet browser. So its value is one of increased user adoption. So imagine a scenario where whether you're at an airport or just imagine a scenario where you're partially connected, meaning you're connected, you can get to the information, but you're not at a full-fledged client application. So what this allows you to do is not only edit the document, but it also allows you to view the full fidelity document. So granted, editing a document is very important, but actually viewing a document and seeing its contents, I would say, is actually more important. So removing the need to have the Office client application installed and still being able to view the document in its entirety is of significant value when it comes to user adoption. Also, it increases the response of SharePoint. So instead of having to open an item in Word and launch Word, when you're in the browser, you click on the item and you immediately see it come up. So there's a minimized user context switching that occurs, because when you jump from application to application, that actually naturally breaks the thought process that you were going through. So when we keep it on the same screen, it's been proven that increases productivity. So here's an example of what the Office 2010 client apps look like. Then following that up with what it looks like within the Office web applications. I'll actually demonstrate this in a little bit, so we'll drill into it and we'll be able to see what it looks like from a demonstration perspective. All right, moving on to number 8. There's a concept within SharePoint. In 2007, it did exist, but it exists in a much more structured, predictable manner within SharePoint 2010, and that's around the concept of enterprise metadata. So what it is basically the ability to create centrally defined taxonomies that can be leveraged across SharePoint forms, so basically across your entire SharePoint investment. And what this does is it allows you to tag content in a very consistent manner, whether that's tagging a particular document as relevant to a product, to a service, to an offering, or it also supports the ability of what's known as taxonomies, which is essentially a user-generated kind of non-structured mechanism for tagging and providing metadata. It's very common in what is traditionally called Web 2.0 technologies, whereby you can really tag a particular document as relevant to anything. You can put your own tags on it, and that's really where the user-generated content tags come in. I'll demonstrate actually how those tags can actually be stored back to a centrally managed repository as well. So some of the values of this is it actually does increase the value of the information that's stored within SharePoint by providing a common nomenclature across all content. We were in discussions with a potential client, and the ask was, what taxonomy do you recommend for our particular organization? And granted, there are taxonomies out there that you can actually purchase taxonomies that are very relevant to a specific topic, but what we found to be more effective is that you actually have to talk to people in the organization to find out the terms that mean something to that organization as a whole. So if you go out and you buy one of these taxonomies, it likely will not resonate with the user. However, it is a good starting point. So if you wanted to feed the conversation to define the taxonomy, it is a very good starting point. So again, increasing the value of the information that is found within SharePoint. Also increasing the user adoption by increasing the value of search results, so the relevance of search results. Again, the search capabilities within 2010 have been significantly upgraded, but the value of search results and relevance can significantly be increased by applying tags to the individual content. And that's something that you can do today inside of SharePoint. Just the fact that metadata, applying and getting metadata is significantly easier. It's not burdensome anymore. It's just there. So it also increases productivity by exposing a set of centrally defined terms. So what we would do in 2007 is we'd likely create a content type, for example, and maybe some site columns that have some enterprise-wide values that you want to attach. And without getting into too many of the shortcomings of that approach, it limited us in that the extension of that capability was challenging, where in 2010, all of these terms are managed centrally. In addition, end users can actually create their own tags, things that are most relevant to them, and I will demonstrate that. One of the things that in 2007 was challenging was the collection of metadata is viewed as tedious. So in 2010, the investment was to make sure that the collection of metadata and the tagging of content, again, is extremely intuitive and very much models the traditional Web 2.0 type technologies. All right, so some of the interfaces for applying metadata. So this is actually a screenshot of editing the properties of a document. So this is kind of what you would do now. Additionally, you have the document information panel, which again is very much available to you in 2007. But the interesting thing about these managed keywords is that when you type them, they now become stored as a term that you can reuse. So you don't have to, arbitrarily just input values over and over and over. They're actually all linked together. So this is actually stored in a single location. So what you're seeing here is actually a screenshot of the management of these term stores. And essentially these are particular terms, keywords, et cetera, that you can define at a system level or centrally. And then this term store can actually be updated by users as well. All right, so let's drill into the first demonstration here. And what you're looking at here, I'll give it just a second to warm up. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a pretty basic SharePoint site, 2010 site. And I'll just do a couple things to get you acclimated. Again, same concept of shared documents. That's still a core concept within SharePoint. But there are a couple things that you'll notice. There's an I like it button up here in the ribbon, and then there's this tags and notes. So the ability to tag something as I like it, for example, is as simple as clicking a button. So you're adding metadata just by clicking a button. You're not typing anything. If you want to get a little bit more specific, what you can do is drill into the tags and notes and start adding your own tags in here. Also, each one of these items can also have a note board. You can think of a note board as, if you're a Facebook user, there's this concept of a wall. So this is a wall specific for this page. So everything within SharePoint can have its own wall, so to speak, but it's called a note board. So I'm just going to tag this as I like it because I'll use it in a demonstration in a little bit. So what I wanted to show you specifically here was the ability to not only view but edit documents, for example. So here, again, here's a Visio document. Here's a Word document. I'll go ahead and just click on it and give you the read-only version, which is now a browser-based document. In this document, there's really nothing all that magical. It just says a simple document. But when I go into, what I can do now is that I can either edit it in Word, full client-based editing, or I can click on this Edit button. So what this does is it brings up the Office web app that, again, is specific to editing, obviously, this document. But you'll notice that there are some very similar tools that run along the top. This concept of a ribbon or the Fluent UI is pervasive throughout SharePoint, and you can actually extend that if you're interested in development opportunities. So again, I have the ability to go through, do spell checking, do formatting as you would expect. I can select that particular item. I can bold it, italicize it. I can format it as a heading 2, what have you. So I can do full editing within the context of this particular app. And again, at any point, if there's a certain capability, maybe you have a custom, whether it's a BCS application or a Visual Studio Tools for Office application that you need to have the rich client for, you can just very simply open this item in Word. So that's the basics of, one thing that I do want to point out, I'm going to go ahead and go back into here. The concept of tagging is, again, pervasive through the entire system. So not only can you tag pages, but you can actually say, hey, I like this document, and I'll go ahead and do that now. Again, I've marked that as an I like, and I'll demonstrate a few things why that's relevant in just a minute. You also have the ability to do the same thing with Visio. This drawing, again, is nothing magical, but you do have the ability to see Visio drawings. I've not seen the ability to actually edit these yet. Maybe coming, but I don't think that that's coming. But you can open it in Word and edit that document. Or, I'm sorry, open in Visio. All right, so that's the basics of the Office web apps. I showed you some tagging capability, and what I'll do in the next demonstration is I'll actually go to my profile page, and I'll show you how those tags become extremely relevant for both individuals as well as communities. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next item. So there's a new concept of composite applications, and really what this is the ability for the end users to quickly create no-code-based solutions leveraging pre-built components that either you develop through BCS definitions or through custom web parts, but really stitching together applications within SharePoint itself. And SharePoint 2007 does have some of this concept, but it's been significantly extended. So imagine a power user within SharePoint that has the ability to, for example, leverage web parts that are connected, so meaning you can send information from one web part to another. You can drop in a KPI web part, and you can create your own pages and mini applications. Same concept, but significantly extended. Some of the value in this particular capability is in the ability to provide the end users with the ability to extend SharePoint beyond what IT is thinking or beyond even what a business analyst might collect as a requirement. So really giving the end user the ability to kind of learn as they go, evolve the application over time, and really empowering the users and hopefully decreasing the burden on IT and eliminate any of the actual or perceived bottlenecks that IT may have. And again, this is really all about the ability to provide end users with browser-based customizations of SharePoint. There's some challenges with it. It will take a power user, I wouldn't say a power user, but someone who's in the know and comfortable with SharePoint. So there are some challenges with implementing the capability. So some of the key composite technologies that you should be interested in is this obviously the tool SharePoint Designer, which allows you to create declarative solutions within SharePoint, so no code-based solutions. Also, you should invest some time in Visio services, so the ability to create human workflows as well as visualizations. When you think of some of these mashup apps, having the ability to display, for example, a process and having that process you can interact with that particular process is of significance. Also, there's a new capability called Access Services, which you can think of Access Services as the ability to create and share databases that are visualized and interacted with through SharePoint itself. You can open those applications in the same Access Rich client, but you also have the control of centrally managing that. I think some of the challenges with traditional Access were that these databases just kind of cropped up out of many different users, and the ability to control those databases became very challenging. With the introduction of Sarbanes-Oxley, for example, what we found is that there were several databases that lived on people's client machines that were actually financially significant, meaning they helped to determine what should be included in a publicly accessible financial statement. So we need the ability to provide the end users with the capability and the flexibility of creating their own database, yet maintain control so that those databases that have regulations on top of them can actually be controlled in a manner sufficient to meet SOX, for example, regulations or SOX requirements. Also, the BCS, again, just to reiterate, the ability to read and write enterprise data wherever it lives, whether it's SAP or CRM or a custom back-end system. That's a key component, because what you want to allow them to do is pull in data from CRM, for example, into their mashup and be able to display and interact with that data. Also, another key capability is obviously form services. So what the user might want to do is collect some information from the folks interacting with the system. Maybe they want to create a chart on top of the data. Maybe they want to do their own custom surveys. So collection of information is done through form services. The screenshots that you see below are just some of the examples of for example, leveraging Visio services to display a graph, leveraging some of the new charting web parts to display some graphical representations of data. So this is the next item that is still extremely relevant is this concept of self-service collaboration. So basically what we're talking about is the ability for an end user to provision their own team sites. Now there is some fear related to providing the end users with that capability, primarily as it relates to governance, but you can go about this in a very controlled manner so that it grows across site collections, it grows across content databases. But I think one of the things that we've seen is that there's one extreme or the other, and I think we need to find a middle ground. One extreme is to not allow users to do it, and then the other extreme is to allow users to do it uncontrolled. We need to find a middle ground that says that we plan for growth and we're going to control that growth, but we don't want to take away the ability to spin up a team site. Really, it's a key enabling technology to facilitating collaboration across what would traditionally be seen as organizational boundaries. The pattern that we've seen is that when you implement SharePoint, you have an intranet that is, primarily a read-only environment where you're reviewing corporate news, doing employee directories, things like that. Then there's also a department site that is used by the members of a particular department to create documents, share documents within the context of that department. But a very common scenario that arises is, well, what if you have two departments that are interacting and they need to work on a document? Either A, you would have to provide security access to that department site, or B, if you allow for self-service, they can spin up a site, collaborate on a particular document, maintain the governance policies that you have in place, yet still perform the job that they need to interacting with other departments or other divisions. So again, the challenges here would be around the management and the control of the solution. It can quickly become overwhelming if you do not plan for growth. So again, it gets back to good governance, planning for site collections and content databases, etc. All right. So moving on to number 5. So social computing is, I think, actually probably more valuable than a lot of us will give it credit. I think it's more valuable than 5, but because of some of the challenges, primarily related to cultural challenges, that's why it's rated number 5. But essentially, within the context of SharePoint, what this allows you to do is expand the value of information by understanding that people can actually contribute to a document's value. So a very common example that we like to use is, I don't know if anybody's ever gone out and used the web to search blogs to come up with an answer to something. A lot of the times, it's not the blog post that is actually the valuable piece of information. It's actually the comments that come in response to the blog post that provides that valuable piece of information. And that's the same process that we're encouraging here, is that you can tag content. You can add content to a note board, for example, that really, when someone's reviewing the document, they can also see all of this stuff, all the chatter and the communication around a particular document, thus increasing the value of that particular piece of information. There's also some concepts and some extensions around my sites that I'll show you some. Actually, I won't show you my sites. I'll show you user profiles. There's also the concept of status updates. So be it good, be it bad, the ability to say what it is that you're doing at any given moment is now a piece of SharePoint. There's also the concept of knowledge mining. This is closely related to the concepts of tagging content. So the ability to pick some tags that you think you're interested in and have SharePoint go out and find items that are tagged as relevant to that particular item. You can also do social tagging, which obviously is human-based tagging. You can create bookmarks. You can add feedback. One of the things that was missing in SharePoint 2007 was the ability to rate a particular document, for example. You now have that capability. So again, some significant investments in how to collect knowledge from people and attach those to hard assets, information assets. So getting into some of its value, again, it's really all about increasing the value of the information within your system. Also increasing user adoption by providing a more intuitive and engaging experience that really works the way that people work. So not having to go and edit the properties of a document, but being able to tag things immediately right from within the UI. Also, it increases productivity by allowing access or quick access to information and the value of that particular information. So a scenario is, for example, if I trust Grant's opinion on particular items, and Grant has commented on a specific document, just simply by him rating that higher, for example, that immediately increases the value of that particular document to me because I trust Grant as a person. So based on a human relationship, you're valuing content. So some of the challenges related to this capability, again, it's not so much technology. It's much more about how people are used to using tools. So I think that the Facebook generation, this will be a no-brainer for them. I think that we may have challenges as it relates to adoption for folks that just aren't comfortable with these Web 2.0 technologies. There seems to be somewhat of a perceived risk in allowing users to truly comment on all of this content, but a lot of the value that we get out of people is in what's in their head, and the more that we can get it attached to physical assets, the better. All right, so here's a quick example of the blogging capability. So it's much more traditional blogging. You could actually go out and get some stuff off of Podplex that made SharePoint blogs look much more traditional. We've just built on top of that. Also, you have a mobile experience for all of these social elements. So you're actually looking at a mobile device's version of a profile, for example. All right, so what I'll do now, I don't think, yeah, I didn't share that out. Hold on 1 second. So what I'll do now is I'll just very quickly drill into my profile to give you just a glimpse on the direction of profile. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my profile. So beyond, some of the things that you're already familiar with, whether it's the organization, the organization that you work in, there's also this organization browser. I do not have it set up where there are significant relationships between people, so there's nothing too magical to show here, but I can drill into that in a minute. So here's how you would update your status. So here I'm preparing for a webcast. Now I'm delivering a webcast. No save button. It's just kind of there, which is really nice. What I wanted to show you, and I think is of great significance, is this concept of tags and notes. So, basically, tag clouds are now just kind of naturally there. But what I wanted to show you was the fact that I have all of these tags. So I created this one called Basic. I also have the I like it tag. I can refine my results, which are actually on the right-hand side. This is showing me everything that's been tagged. So I can refine those tags. So imagine a situation where I was on a home page. I clicked I like it. So here now I can very quickly get back to the home page, for example. But also what this allows me to do is tag content that is relevant. Whether it's to a particular project, whether it's to a particular service offering, really you can tag these items very, very quickly. And this is kind of your tag cloud, right? So this is a tag cloud that is of things that you care about. Obviously, quarterly is the one that has the most content attached to it, so that's why it's showing up as large as it is. So again, in 2007, we have this concept of kind of my documents and my tasks, and I think we all know some of the limitations there. What this does is it really allows you to mark content very, very quickly as something that you care about and always have access to it through your profile. So where is... All right, so moving on. One of the significant, there is significant value that can be derived from leveraging SharePoint as a platform. Whether you want to call it a development platform, an application delivery platform, if you centralize or you pick SharePoint as the preferred delivery mechanism for all browser-based applications, you can see some significant increases or reductions in the overall cost of ownership of all of those disparate applications that you might have out there. Maybe you have some VB6 stuff. Maybe you have some classic ASP apps. Maybe you have some third-party products. In the process of app modernization, for example, if you're going from VB6 to, you want to upsize that, you want it to be on a more modern code base, so to speak, you should consider SharePoint as the delivery mechanism for that. Granted, you could just go with pure ASP.NET, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But SharePoint is pervasive enough that reviewing whether or not to put your application on SharePoint is one that we would highly recommend doing. It is quickly becoming the web platform. IAS is your foundational component. ASP.NET is an enabling technology. And now if you layer SharePoint on top of that, not only are you getting the ability to create web apps, but you're getting a series of services that come along with it, namely the profile data store, the ability to version items, obviously document management, and just the fact that all of these services are there for you to leverage. Granted, there is some learning that needs to occur and some shifting of the process that you go about architecting applications, but you can gain significant benefits simply by unifying your platform onto SharePoint. And again, some of the challenges are that it does take some time for developers, for the IT staff, to get trained and to be comfortable supporting this as your tier one, most important application. Moving on to number 3 is a concept of reporting and intelligence hubs. So what we've seen significant value for our clients is the ability to have a single location to collect reports, to collect dashboards, and that's what we call either a reporting or an intelligence hub. So again, leveraging SharePoint is the primary mechanism for delivering business intelligence solutions, as well as providing users with self-service capabilities around the ability to create their own whether it's a dashboard or an Excel document that pulls in from data sources, whether it's creating their own scorecards. The clients that have implemented SharePoint or leveraged SharePoint for business intelligence solutions, SharePoint just now becomes part of the fabric of the organization. So if you're looking to immediately increase the adoption and the value of SharePoint, looking into a business intelligence-based solution that sits on top of SharePoint is definitely of significance. A couple examples of some of the dashboards. This also starts to drill into that concept of composites. So not only do composites pull in data from the BCS and actually aggregate data and bring in scorecards, they can bring in some charting web parts. So again, the building of dashboards is both a behind-the-scenes process as well as a composite application process. All right, moving on to number 2, and this is one that I think may be overlooked, but is of great significance. The offline experience within 2010 is frankly, it's amazing. So one of the barriers to user adoption is if they're working on a document that lives in SharePoint and they go home or the network goes down and they're prevented from working on that same document, immediately your user adoption and belief in this kind of centralized document management system goes down. So with 2010, there have been some significant investments around what was previously called Guru is now called SharePoint Workspace. But really one of the things that I'm most excited about is this Office document cache or offline document cache or offline data cache. Bottom line is it's ODC. What this allows you to do is really have experiences within SharePoint and documents that live in SharePoint as if they were on your local file store. I'll drill into some of the details, the enabling details, but really the data cache is of great significance. From a challenges perspective, in 2010 it just works. Maybe you could argue that there are some challenges with getting a SharePoint workspace down to the client, but really that's about as far as it goes. If you have the 2010 client, you're going to get the ODC, which is of great value. So let's talk briefly about SharePoint Workspace. So again, it really is the client application that syncs with SharePoint. It's been significantly enhanced to allow for the editing of richer info path forms, the syncing of lists, the manipulation and interaction with list data. So it truly is a kind of full fidelity offline client-side application for SharePoint apps. Again, this is an evolution of Groove. So moving on to this ability to do mobile syncing. So not only do you have the ability to view these documents and download these documents, but you also have the ability to sync up with these individual items. There's also a version of SharePoint Workspace for mobile, but you also have your other traditional applications like Excel and Word. And again, jumping back into the ODC, so this is essentially a new I/O protocol that allows, that minimizes the network traffic, the chatter that traditionally occurs between saving a document and opening a document. The reason that this works is that as you interact with a document in SharePoint, that's actually stored to a local cache. As you interact with that document, changes are actually shipped over the wire. Only the changes are shipped over the wire, and there's emerging technology on the server that determines what needs to be saved. It also opens up for scenarios where within Word, for example, you can have multiple people editing a particular document. And really the bottom line here is that when you interact with a document, the save experience, the auto-save experience is much closer to as if it were stored locally. And that's the main objective, to increase user adoption by ensuring that that document is always available to them regardless of their connectivity status. Okay, and so the one thing that we think is most valuable within SharePoint, it's pretty obvious, but we really think that search is the technology that if you don't have a search strategy in place, you should seriously consider putting a strategy in place, because this is the one item that significantly increases productivity and user adoption at the same time. So the first time that one of your constituents or users or whatever you call them interacts with SharePoint Search and it actually helps them, we'll be hooked. It's very similar to, would you try to browse and find a document on the web, or would you go to Bing or some other search engine to actually go out and find it for you? That's what we're trying to achieve here with Enterprise Search. And this is not just search that is specific to documents, but again, because of the BCS, we can pull in information from back-end systems and really bring back a significant view of information based on what you type in. I think that search is a cultural thing. I think that users are quickly becoming or quickly demanding that an organization have some form of a search experience. The days of browsing through a file share and actually even browsing through a traditional taxonomy, so to speak, or site hierarchy, those days are quickly behind us. We really need to plan for enterprise search and make sure that our search works. Search is not one of those technologies that you just turn on. It requires care and feeding. It requires analysis, because people's search needs change over time. So it's definitely not something that you turn on and you just kind of let it go. You have to watch it. You review the search logs. You see what people are searching for. You manipulate your best bets. So it is something that incurs some overhead, but again, in terms of productivity and cost of ownership, it has significant benefits. So if you're not already familiar with the search technologies that Microsoft provides, so there's Search Server Express, which is a quick, really, I wouldn't say limited. I would say that you have a limit in terms of the number of items that you can have in any given index, but it's the same search technology. SharePoint 2010 obviously provides the things that you're used to as it relates to intranet search, web search, Exchange folder search, etc. But then you also have Fast Search, which from a SharePoint perspective, I think one of the most obvious benefits would be immediate indexing of content, as well as the ability to preview documents, which is actually very, very significant when you're searching through tons and tons of information. There's also some enhancements around multilingual support for global relevance. So if you have a multilingual SharePoint deployment, there's some built-in multilingual support. And in terms of investments, the scale for these search applications has been significantly increased. You have a lot more options as it relates to index servers and crawl DBs and things like this. So here's what the SharePoint Search experience looks like. Again, you have this concept of refiners along the left-hand side, commonly referred to as facets. You also have your search terms are also going to automatically return to you people results. You'll also see some related queries. So again, a pretty all-encompassing search experience. As it relates to FAST, some of the very easy value add, again, are the document preview pane, the ability to have refinements that actually have counts next to them. For example, how many of these documents are created by John Smith? Obviously, the document thumbnails and document preview capability is of significance as well. And I don't know if you can see this, but this is a particular PowerPoint, and what this allows you to do is kind of navigate through the PowerPoint right from within your search experience. A couple more things. You can obviously do best bets, but you can also do what are known as visual best bets. So the ability to provide a preview or an image on top of your best bets as well. So that just kind of elevates the value of that particular best bet by providing some imagery. All right, so we are right at the end, right up against 11 o'clock. So in conclusion, SharePoint 2007 and 2010 provide significant opportunities for providing true business value. Based on our 350-plus projects, we believe that these are the top 10 features and scenarios that'll drive the most value with the least amount of implementation costs. Now, having said that, there are other scenarios that we've seen in dozens of scenarios where SharePoint's value can be significantly increased through customization and the writing of code, and that's stuff that obviously we do very, very well. We've done that for automating business processes such as billing, human resource onboarding and offboarding, actual execution of projects, contract management. And the reason that we didn't mention some of these scenarios was just simply that obviously the implementation costs are more than just installing SharePoint. So really what we tried to do here was give you some insight into the features that we think you'll get extreme benefit from out of the box. Composite apps, things like the social computing capabilities. All of these things you can get up and running, and the threshold for entry is very low. So with that, if we could do just 2 more poll slides and just kind of review just of these 3 items. We have some of the others coming up on the next slide. Which of these features that we talked about do you think are most valuable to your organization? Okay, great. Thank you for that. Looks like composite apps. And so this is a little bit more encompassing. Maybe I should have broken these out a little bit more. But of these features, which do you think is of most significance to your organization? There's no right answer, by the way. Okay. So a few more votes coming in here, but looks like it's right between Office web apps and search. So that's great. Very good. All right, so just one last call to action. Neudesic does offer a couple things around SharePoint health checks for 2007. We come in and we analyze where you're at, what your adoption rate is, things like that, what the overall health of your physical environment is. So we do offer that as a service, as well as a SharePoint 2010 readiness assessment. So if you're interested in any of these, go ahead and email Katie, and she will definitely get you hooked up with the right folks at Neudesic. Couple resources. I don't know if you want to jot these down real quick, but you can go out to the web and basically do a search on 2010 stuff, and more than likely this is what you'll be most interested in. For everyone, meaning all of the overview, you'll want to go to SharePoint.Microsoft.com. For IT pros, MSSharePointITPro.com, and for developers, MSSharePointDeveloper.com. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator, I believe, for some final cleanup items as well as a final survey. So with that, I thank you for your time.
Okay, and thanks so much, Jason. And ladies and gentlemen, you should now see a survey slide in the main slide window, and you can fill it out just by simply clicking in the survey directly in live meeting here. And again, we do thank all of you for attending today, and also thanks to Jason for the great presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's event, and you may now disconnect.